All right, guys, so we're going to continue with this, but I am going to tell you one thing. What we're going to do is we're not going to have the same sentences to be able to kind of talk through this. But what I have done is I have pulled out my place value chart so that we can look at this, okay? So I'm going to kind of split this the best that I can on the screen. And I think what I might do is, because of how I'm splitting it, I might just kind of go straight down like this on each of those instead of going across in this block of problems. So I'm going to actually, when I do this, I'm actually going to rename it into a fraction. So I have 6 divided by 10, or 1/10. So if you think about it, guys, if I have 6 and I want to divide these 6 into tenths, how many tenths do I have? Well, I have 60. Okay. This one, I'm going to have 1 7/10, and I'm going to divide it by 1/10. Okay. Sorry, it was off the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show this 1 7/10. And what I want to do is I want to divide this into the tenths. So I want to look to see what I have. So how many tenths, or what would the answer be? Well, it would be 17. Okay, we're not necessarily worrying about this label right here because we did divide it into tenths, and it's kind of like I want to know how many tenths I have. Well, I have 17 tenths. I'm just not putting that label as tenths at the end. Okay, so this one I have 125, and I'm dividing it into 1/10. So if I put this on my place value chart, I have 125. I want to split it into tenths, so I want to make sure that I'm on that tenths. So what would be my answer to that problem? It would be 1,250. Okay. Moving on to these problems. And I think in a little bit we're going to be moving on to that hundredths here. So I have 18, and I'm going to divide it by 1/10. Okay. So if I put 18 on my place value chart, and remember I want to get it into that tenths, what is my answer? It would be 180. Same thing now, we're going to do 31, and we're going to divide it by 100. So that means that I'm really wanting to stick into this place value. So I'm going to put 31, and when I do this, because I'm splitting it into hundredths, I want to make sure that I end on that hundredths column. So my answer would be 3,100. Okay. I'm keeping that hundredths because I know this one, I've got 3 74 hundredths, and I'm dividing it by 100th. And when I put this onto my place value chart, I have 3 74 hundredths. I'm splitting it into that hundredths. So how many hundredths do I actually have? I only have 374. See if I can pull this up just a little bit so we can see it a little bit better, so we can see all of the screen. Okay, I'm actually going to move this onto this side so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so this one is still hundredths, so I'm going to take 6 and I'm going to divide it by 100th. And when I put my 6 in here, I want to make sure that I'm dividing them into that hundredths. So how many hundredths do I have? I have 600. Okay, I've got 11, and I'm dividing it by 100th. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put 11. How many hundredths do you have? Well, you have 1,100. Okay, I'm going to erase this, and I've got 12 and 5/10, and I'm going to divide it by 100th. And when I do this, I'm going to write it on my place value chart. Here's my 5. I want it to be the hundredths. So how many hundredths do I have altogether? I have 1,250. Okay, so pretty simple. If you use this place value chart, that will really help you. Okay. It says Young bought $4.60 worth of bubble gum. If each bubble gum cost 10 cents, how many pieces of bubble gum did he buy? So if he got $4.60 and each of them cost 10 cents, okay, I'm actually going to rewrite this, and I could rewrite it as a 100th, but I'm actually going to write it as a tenth, okay? So I'm going to rewrite this as $4.60. I'm going to divide it by 1/10. So if I bring my place value chart out, I have $4.60, but I'm dividing it into tenths. How many pieces of bubble gum did he buy? Well, he bought 46 pieces. Okay. Moving on, it says Cheryl solved the problem of 84 divided by 100th. So I'm going to actually put 100th. And she said it's 8,400. Jane said your answer is wrong because when you divide, the quotient is always smaller than the whole amount you start with. For example, when you do 6 divided by 2, you always get 3. So what she's saying is that your number should never be big. It should always be smaller. So she's saying you started with 84. Your answer should be smaller. Because then she also said if I have 100 and I divide it into 4, you get 25. Who is correct? Well, I'm going to tell you Cheryl is correct. And the reason why Cheryl is correct is because Cheryl is actually not dividing by a whole number. She is dividing by a fraction. She's dividing by something really teeny tiny. So she is correct because when you take 84 and I'm dividing it into that hundredths, I do get 8,400 hundredths. And the reason is because you are taking this 84 and you're making them all into little hundredths. And so I would have 8,400 of these fractions to be able to equal to that 84. Okay? The U.S. Mint sells 2 ounces, so I'm going to write 2 ounces of American Eagle gold coins to a collector. Each coin weighs 1/10, so I'm going to write 1/10 of an ounce. How many gold coins were sold to the collector? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this by 1/10. Okay, so if I have 2 ounces, so here's my 2, and I'm dividing it into tenths, how many tenths do I have? Well, it would be 20 gold coins.